What's going on, Phoenicians? Well, if you don't know who I am, my name is Zach, Phoenix787, you can call me that. And I've lived in Japan for 3 years. And for today's video, the moment that this video is being uploaded, which is earlier than my usual uploads, is exactly 5 years to the day from the horrible disaster up in Tohoku, the Great East Japan earthquake, the tsunami that claimed 15,000 plus lives, and the nuclear disaster at Fukushima Daiichi, which has displaced 100,000 others. And I'm just gonna talk to you guys today about my experience. I wasn't in Japan for that time. My first trip to Japan came that summer, which I'll get to later in the video. I knew a lot of friends though in Japan, and I was in Arizona at that time, and it was about a few days before many of my exchange student friends were about to go back to Japan. It was the end of a semester, end of the term, not the semester, but end of the term for many of the exchange students that came to ASU for that time, and many of them were making plans to go back to Japan. And also at that time I was talking with a girl, I don't know, I mean, she was like a pen pal kind of thing. I don't know how to describe it. It was just an online friendship that I had. And I was texting her for a while, and on the 9th, I believe, there was a rather large earthquake, and she texted me pictures from her apartment where stuff fell over, and I was like, oh wow, that's scary. And then the night of the 10th, I was texting a few people back in Japan. I said, hey, I'm going to be coming to Japan in July. What's the weather like? And then I didn't hear back from them for a while. I guess it was the afternoon. It was early morning there, or it was morning their time, late night my time. About an hour and a half later, I was still awake. It was around, I think it was around like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. I forgot what time it was, Arizona time. 2:46 Eastern, no, 2:46 Japan time. I get a slew of text messages from my pen pal friend, just in the most shocking text messages I'll ever receive. And it's a shame I don't have them. I think I have them saved somewhere on my computer or on my Yahoo mail, but I don't use that anymore. But that was the moment the earthquake occurred, the big one. And she texted me pictures of like a lot of stuff in her house falling over. This friend of mine lived in Koga in Ibaraki, which is about 45 miles-ish north of Tokyo. It's about it's a 45-minute train ride, rather. And Ibaraki is close to, or she lives at least, is closer to the epicenter than it is here in Tokyo, but still not that close. According to the Japanese scale, that area had Shindo 5+ shaking. Tokyo had Shindo 5-, but it lasted a long time. The farther you are away from the earthquake, the longer the perceived shaking is, because the wavelengths sort of flatten out, but they're still the same strength. Or not the same strength, but they're still the same magnitude. So the shaking that she perceived was roughly 8 minutes to 9 minutes, she said, my friend. In Tokyo, it was roughly 9 minutes. But the quake itself, the main quake, was 6 minutes. And the taller the building was, the more, it vibrated and waved over. Within minutes, there was just a bunch of Facebook posts from my friends here in Japan, just frantic, and then dead silence for like an hour, because most of Japan's power went out. It took forever for me to get into contact with a bunch of people, but I stayed up until like 3 or 4 a.m. that night just watching the news. And about an hour after the quake, around midnight Arizona time, I think it was midnight Arizona time, the images of the tsunami just started rolling in, and I was just sitting there in front of my TV, just in shock. Just looking at the news, just showing the tsunami. And I have to say that I'm very lucky that none of my friends were injured. I think only this is a tragedy nonetheless, but only a few people said they had relatives that were injured. I don't think any of my friends lost any relatives. I don't know. I never asked my friends about that, but for the most part, none of my friends lost relatives because most of my friends, they are from Kansai, which is farther west. They live in Tokyo, but they're from Kansai. And a lot of some of my Kansai friends didn't even feel the quake, even though it was Shindo 3 in the Kansai region. But the rest of the day, the rest of that morning, I just kind of stayed up watching the news, and then the next day I went to school, and I met up with a bunch of my friends, and they said that they are having trouble contacting their parents because the power was out here in Tokyo, and everyone's on their phones trying to get a hold of everybody, make sure they're safe. Eventually all my friends got into contact with their parents. Some of them were saying their parents spent the night at the train station because they lived on the other side of town. They couldn't get home. And most of the trains were out for the rest of the day because of the damage. One of my friends was struggling to get a hold of her dad and wasn't able to get a hold of her dad, and she was starting to get really panicky. But that night, around like 7 o'clock Arizona time, she finally got a call from her dad saying that her dad was okay. Spent the night at the train station. And he was using a payphone to call his daughter, which must have cost a lot of money. But the only phones that were working there were landline phones, and even then the service was sporadic because a lot of landlines themselves were down. It wasn't for maybe a day or two after that we knew of the extent of the Fukushima accident. For me, I don't know. I'm actually starting to read. I was reading a lot of articles later on, especially from libertarian publications, that say that a lot of the evacuations and a lot of the media attention to Fukushima was overhyped. A lot of the areas received radiation that would not do anything to you at all. But that's totally up for debate. Nonetheless, from what my professor told me, the vast majority of the people in that region that were affected were elderly people. So the effect on the country itself, in terms of the population disparity, was not too terribly bad, except a lot of these areas up north are not going to recover because of that. JR East gave up on repairing a few train lines as well, and the Joban line, which is one of the main lines between Tokyo and Sendai, is probably not going to get repaired for another 40 years or so between, around the area of the Fukushima plant. They might move it farther inland, which I think is a good idea. That's what they were thinking about doing. But a lot of those communities are never going to be able to return to normal. And that's the really sad part about this. This country's, for millennia, has been hit by earthquakes. And everyone's talking about the big Nankai earthquake and how that might destroy Tokyo. That won't destroy Tokyo. The Nankai quake will shake Tokyo, but it won't destroy it. It won't do anything. The building I'm living in now was built in 2000 and late 2000s to the most stringent earthquake-resistant codes known to man. I'm not going to die in this building. I know that. I feel like Japan, though, since the quake, has had this sense of paranoia. Although I do not think that they should be restarting nuclear reactors, I do think, though, that a lot of people just kind of went off the handle and overreacted a lot to this earthquake. And it's caused a lot more trouble than it's fixed. And you just have to feel really bad for everyone who's been involved in this, like every victim. Successive governments with from both political parties have done nothing to fix the issue. And I think everyone's focused on the Olympics now, which, I mean, I'm all for the Olympics, but they shouldn't forget Tohoku, and we shouldn't either. Yeah. When I first came to Japan, my first ever trip to Japan was the summer of 2011. I came here July 6th, and there was still sporadic aftershocks rather frequently. I think it was like the July 10th, like it was my 4th or 5th day in Japan, and there was a rather large aftershock. It was the first time I've ever felt an earthquake. I was sitting at my desk like this, I was typing on a computer, and all of a sudden my butt just started shaking like this. And I was like, whoa, what the hell was that? And I turned on the TV and they showed there was a tsunami advisory. It was a magnitude 7 earthquake up in Tohoku. So these aftershocks could still spawn tsunami, but they're not going to be huge tsunami. Like tiny, if any, right? So that's going to keep going on for a while. And, you know, as you've seen from one of my most popular videos, there was an earthquake that I was recording, right? I don't know, honestly. Like, I just came to Japan at that time when the whole Setsuden thing, saving electricity thing, was in full swing. And they were just starting Cool Biz, right? Because it was right after the rainy season, the day I got there. And they were starting the whole Cool Biz campaign. They were doing the whole save electricity thing. By the time I got there, there was no rolling blackouts at all in Tokyo. So Japan, as it's known to do quite frequently, has overcome adversity in its own way. Like, these rolling blackouts were continuing for months, disrupting transit, disrupting everything, right? And the government, the society was like, hey, let's save electricity so we don't have these rolling blackouts. And sure enough, that worked. LED lights on the trains, LED lights in the stations, people switching their stuff to LEDs, people putting solar panels on their houses and stuff like that. Yeah, they overcome adversity. And then just last year, they just finished repairing Tokyo Tower. When I got to Tokyo Tower, when I went to Tokyo Tower for the first time in 2011, the top end was bent like this. And then throughout 2013 and 14, the first 2 years I've been here, they were repairing the whole tower, and now it looks beautiful again. So when I got to Tokyo, it looked like nothing happened. Most of the damage that's been done, like especially to the streets, totally repaired. People were just trying to get back to normal. Trying to forget the quake, trying to live their life as if the quake never happened. I think that's pretty honorable, if you ask me. Pretty resilient. That's one thing I really love about Japan and Japanese people. They know how to overcome adversity. And I just wish we use this horrible tragedy of the 3/11 earthquake, tsunami, and then the Fukushima nuclear accidents to kind of remember the Scouts' motto, right? Be prepared. I don't think they were prepared, were they? No, I think they will be now. It's sad that it takes a horrible tragedy, though, to shake Japan into having safety measures or rational choices, right? It took the huge earthquake to build seawalls that are actually able to sustain large tsunami. It took the earthquake to develop the huge anti-nuclear movement here and to develop stricter safety measures for nuclear power plants, right? It took the earthquake to put Japan into energy saving mode, right? Where they should have been doing that for ages, right? And there's another potential disaster looming in Japan, and that's the economy, right? The economy might collapse because of the low birth rate. Is it going to take an economic disaster to have Japan finally modernize itself into the 21st century? I hope that doesn't happen. I hope Japan learns from the 3/11 earthquake and modernize the country. Make women participate more, and then, of course, at the same time, give them more opportunities to raise a family equally with the father, right? I don't know. I just hope that doesn't happen because I plan on staying here for quite some time. But these are my reflections from the 3/11 earthquake. I know I kind of rambled on a bit, but I hope you guys kind of took away something from this. And I hope you guys look upon today with somber hearts, but with reflective minds, with open minds. And just never forget those who died in that quake as well. Especially those who died in the line of duty trying to save others, right? Civilians saving others, police and firefighters evacuating civilians and stuff. I can't say let's hope that never happens again in Japan. It's going to happen again. Let's just hope that Japan is much more prepared for the next disaster than it was for 3/11. So, rest in peace to all the souls that perished on 3/11. And then, let's just look forward, like we've always done in Japan, right? Just keep looking forward. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Take it easy, Phoenicians.